Welcome back to This McCrazy Wife. Today's video is going to be part 2 of the dinner decision fatigue series. Now, I don't know about you, but deciding what to make for dinner is usually the hardest part of dinner for me. So let me help you out with some suggestions. How do these sound? Smash burger tacos on the Blackstone, Philly cheesesteak sloppy joes, barbecue chicken sliders, and a super easy chicken with gravy over mashed potatoes. These are easy, delicious, and true summer recipes that don't require the oven, so let's get started. The first dinner is this chicken gravy over mashed potatoes. Now, these potatoes came from our garden and they definitely needed a good scrub. I gave them a good wash, peeled and diced them, added them to the Instant Pot with a cup of water and a good sprinkle of salt, put on the lid, set to seal, and set the timer for 8 minutes. While those get to cooking, I'm going to make just a simple gravy on the stove. I have a cast iron skillet heating over medium-ish heat, and I melted about 4 tablespoons of butter. Once that's melted, I'm adding in 4 tablespoons of flour. Let that flour cook until you can't see the white anymore. Probably took a minute or two. I'm stirring it constantly to keep it from burning into just a blob. I also added in the tiniest onion that I had accidentally pulled out of the garden when I was weeding, but you could definitely add in more onion if you like, or even onion powder just for the flavor. Now I'm pouring in some of my homemade chicken stock while whisking constantly to keep it from being lumpy. You are going to see some lumps, but that's just the onion bits. So just keep adding in broth until it's a good consistency. This was about 4 cups of broth and honestly was a little bit too much, but I didn't want the broth to go to waste, so I just added it in. If you want a thicker gravy, just add less broth. Now I'm going to add in some seasoning to it, but this broth didn't need much because it's homemade, so the flavor isn't so good. Just season according to your tastes, and I really do mean taste it and see if you think it needs anything else. Now I let it go until it was bubbling and thickening, and then I added in 2 pounds of cooked ground chicken that I had in my freezer. Browning up your ground meat before freezing is a super easy way to make supper time just that much quicker. So we'll give that a good stir and let it bubble until you're happy with the thickness of the gravy and your meat is good and hot. Now this is ridiculously easy, but you will be surprised at just how delicious it is. Now do an instant release on the Instant Pot and add some butter and milk to the potatoes. I like to season potatoes heavily because I find mashed potatoes to just be bland a lot of the time. Salt, pepper, and garlic powder are really good for mashed potatoes or the seasoning like I just used. Also, if you find there's too much water in the potatoes after cooking, just drain that off. Mash the potatoes to whatever mashy consistency you like and dinner is ready. We're going to top the mashed potatoes with the chicken gravy. I added on a quick veggie to the side. And this is easily one of my favorite dinners. So easy and delicious, no oven needed. Next up are smash burger tacos. Now, I've seen these all over social media, but I've never actually tried making them before. I'm starting off with a couple pounds of ground beef, and I wanted to season mine before putting them on the griddle. And then we'll be using these flour tortillas. I maybe should have chosen smaller tortillas, but these worked out okay. I'm adding in a few splashes of that W sauce, and I was pleasantly surprised at the good flavor that adds. Then some of that Montreal steak seasoning, and as always, just season to taste. I just kind of mished it around and rolled them back into balls. I was semi-following a recipe from Healthy Homesteader on Instagram, and I will try to link her page below. I really enjoy her recipes. Anyways, that was the recipe I was kind of following for this. But I needed to get started on the special sauce, which I forgot to do in advance, and I do recommend you do it a few hours ahead of time so it can be in the refrigerator. But all it was mayonnaise, about a half a cup of mayonnaise. I recommend Duke's mayonnaise. About a couple tablespoons of ketchup, a tablespoon of mustard, and then just a couple splashes of pickle juice, which I hate pouring out of the jar because it always ends up running down the side. But just give it a good stir, and you could use a whisk if you want to get it super smooth, but I was fine with how it was. Give it a taste, see how it is. It was absolutely delicious. Put it in the fridge and then get started making the actual burgers. Okay, so my Blackstone was preheated and good and hot when I put the burger balls on. After I put them on, I realized I forgot to spray it with oil, so I went ahead and just did that. But now I did not follow the instructions on how to do this, and surprise, surprise, I struggled. But maybe just follow the directions and press a thin layer of beef on the tortilla first. I mean, my way worked, but it was probably more difficult. But I pressed the tortilla onto the burger ball until it was flattened as much as I could, being very careful not to let my arms slip off and hit the hot griddle sides. But after I was pretty sure the meat was cooked, I went ahead and flipped the tacos, immediately added a piece of cheese, and then continued on flipping the others. I then realized I needed to fold these over, and that was a little more complicated than it probably should have been. But I finally found that just by pushing the center with my finger, I could fold the taco in half without burning myself too much. Maybe just don't make this for someone other than your family if you're going to jab your finger into the center of the burger, though. But I kept these going until they got crispy, and then I flipped them over to be sure both sides were good. These honestly were really, really good, but the next day I had one reheated in the air fryer, and it was even better the next day, cooked in the air fryer, because it really crisped the tortilla really, really well. So maybe next time I should just leave it on the griddle a little bit longer so the tortilla gets good and crispy, or maybe I just need to use a little bit less oil. Anyways, I removed them from the griddle, and we topped these with lettuce, diced up tomato from our garden, and then added that special sauce. They were so good. Again, even better the next day in the air fryer, but absolutely delicious and such a good summer recipe. Okay, recipe number 3. This is also from Healthy Homesteader on Instagram. This is the barbecue chicken sliders. Now, this is definitely the easiest recipe in this video. It's just 4 ingredients. Boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I used about 3 large ones. 1.5 cups of barbecue sauce, which I just eyed and threw in about 2/3 of the bottle. A healthy splash of the W sauce, and a good sprinkle of garlic powder. And that's it. You put on the lid, set it to low for about 7 or so hours. So I decided to do some air fryer roasted potatoes to go along with it. These were also potatoes from our garden, which this is the first year I've ever grown potatoes, and it was just so exciting to me to actually have potatoes from our garden. But I went ahead and just peeled them, diced them up, gave them a good rinse, and then I just dried them in that towel. Put them into a bowl with a good splash of avocado oil, stirred it around, and then added in some seasoning. I love the Kinder's Smokehouse salt and pepper blend, but whatever you like to season your potatoes with. Put them into a preheated air fryer at 385 degrees for 10 minutes. Pull it out, give it a good shake, and then adjust your temperature to 400 degrees and go ahead and do it for another 10 to 15 minutes. Just checking it often. Give it a shake. I go ahead and just press into it with a fork and see if they're tender. At this point, they were tender and they were looking okay, but I wanted them to be a little bit more browned. So I put them back in for a few more minutes. Pull it back out, give it another good shake, and you can see these are absolutely delicious. This is actually my mom's recipe. She's the one who came up with this, and they are perfection every single time. So at this point, the chicken is done, and I go ahead and take the lid off. Shred up the chicken. You can take it out. You can see my beagle is like, Mom, are you cooking chicken? You can take it out and shred it up if you want. I think it's easier just to use a fork and shred it up right inside of the crock pot. Now, I tasted it and felt like it needed a little bit more of the barbecue sauce. So I went ahead and added in the rest of that bottle and then stirred it up. We're serving it on these Hawaiian sweet rolls that I get at Aldi. They're way cheaper than the name brand, by the way, and delicious. Recipe recommends you serve these with coleslaw, which would be delicious, but most of my family does not like coleslaw, so I did not do that. But just these chicken sliders with these potatoes and then, of course, a pickle spear on the side was absolutely delicious and one of my favorite summertime recipes now. And here you can see, I know this is random, but the birds in our garden just make me so happy. So I wanted to just share that with you guys. All right, our final recipe for this video is again from the Healthy Homesteader over on Instagram. Really, you need to go follow her. She has incredible recipes, but it's for Philly cheesesteak sloppy joes. This again was super easy. The ingredients, you probably already have most of it on hand. It calls for beef broth, but I went ahead and just added in the Better Than Bouillon beef base. So we're starting off with a cast iron skillet. Again, I'm just spritzing it with some oil, and we're going to cook up 1.5 pounds of ground beef. I kind of break that apart and then added in a green pepper that I had diced up, and then an onion again from our garden. This is actually our first year for growing onions too, and it's been really fun. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna brown up the beef with the peppers and the onions. Oh, this also calls for mushrooms, but I just can't do mushrooms, so I left the mushrooms out. After that was browned, I went ahead and added in a couple tablespoons of butter, stirred that around until it melted, and then you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of flour. So basically you're kind of making like a gravy for this Sloppy Joes. After that flour has cooked off, I added in 1 cup of beef broth, which again I made with hot water, and then just a good spoonful of that beef, Better Than Bouillon beef base. Stir it around, let it get nice and thickened. Throw in some more of that W sauce, stir it up, and then it didn't call for salt and pepper, and for some reason I just felt like it needed it, so I did go ahead and add in some salt and pepper. And then as always, give it a taste and see how you think it tastes. If it needs a little bit more or something, go ahead and add it in. Now the recipe said to stir in a cup of shredded provolone cheese. I just bought sliced provolone cheese, and then these hamburger buns that I got at Aldi were fantastic. So that's what we served it on. Now about the point that dinner was ready, I got a call from my husband that he was stuck in traffic and was going to be late. So I went ahead and transferred that into a casserole dish, which I covered with aluminum foil, put into the Hot Logic, and it kept it at the perfect temperature until he got home and we were ready to eat. To serve with, to have alongside of this, I just went ahead and threw some French fries into the air fryer. We were keeping it simple this night. It was already late. We were so hungry. So I added the Philly cheesesteak Sloppy Joes onto the buns, added that slice of provolone cheese. Everybody in my family agreed they would always choose these over regular Sloppy Joes. They were fantastic. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks again for watching This McCrazy Wife. I will see you in the next one.